All right, so LaVar Arrington, let's talk about old school. Let's talk about some old school stuff here because Deion Sanders, who is the talk of college football, and for everybody talking about the flash and the sizzle and prime time and all the other stuff that comes along with it, Deion Sanders is old school, and he's taken an old school approach. So Cormani McClain is a 5-star flip from Miami. Before the season, this was big news. They got him to leave the Hurricanes and leave that situation and come over to Boulder, and so there was a lot of buzz about it. But he's barely played. He was inactive the first couple of games of the season. He's barely played as a Colorado Buffalo. And so Deion Sanders was asked about it recently, and he just let it fly as to the real reason why Cormani McClain, the 5-star recruit stud flip from Miami, hasn't seen the field much since being in Boulder.
You mentioned last week that Cormani seeing the field was up to Cormani. I wonder if you could elaborate on what you want to see him do. Did he help his case?
Study, prepare.
Late against
Study, prepare, be on time for meetings. Show up to the darn meetings. Understand what we're doing as a scheme. Want to play this game. Desire to play this game. Desire to be the best in this game. At practice, in the film room, and on your own free time. You do know that I check film time for each player upon the week. Thursday, I need film times from the whole staff so I can see who's been preparing. And that's just not about Cormani. That's about a multitude of them. So if I don't see you would be a fool to put somebody out there and they're unprepared. Can't do it. Won't do it. Can't do it. I'm old school. I'm sorry.
Did Oregon help in that regard because he got out there late? What
a score. Shoot. I started to put you out there at one point.
Oh, my gosh.
Sanders letting it fly. Now, I have seen some people have some issue with the fact that why would he air this player out, publicly like this? Why would he take this stance? And it kind of reminds me of something. You remember a couple of years ago when we first started doing the show, you remember Brett Bielema, the head coach?
Was like, you smoke crack, don't you?
Right, yeah, there was that.
Well, go ahead and jump.
So Brett Bielema...
isn't that a Joe Clark? Isn't that a Joe Clark approach? But
yeah,
go ahead,
basically.
Go ahead.
So Brett Bielema, the head coach of Illinois, he was criticized because he aired out his offensive line and just basically said, we don't have...
Why do you want to go there?
Well,
Why do you want to go there? Then their next game was against us and they beat us.
Oh, well, listen, I wasn't bringing that up.
A 20 overtime game.
I wasn't bringing that up. It was just there was a lot of people saying, man, what's Brett Bielema doing? That's old school mentality. You can't do that in today's day and age. And, man, if I recall last year, Illinois finished higher in the rankings than they had in the previous 10 years. So whatever Brett Bielema was doing, something about it worked and something about it kicked in despite what everybody on the outside said. And there has been some people who maybe don't like this approach from Deion Sanders, but I love it because this is how it would be back in the day. If you weren't playing up to snuff, you'd get exposed and you'd get called out. Old school.
I think I'm going to start here. The first things first is there's nothing that people are going to absolutely like about what Deion is doing. There's always the people who have a problem with Deion are going to all have problems with Coach Prime. Let's just first establish that. So nothing is going to be done correctly. If you err on the side of keep family business inside, like details or whatever it may be, inside the locker room, inside the meeting rooms, that's fine. But there's also the idea, you have to understand that there's a standard and a culture that he's building there. And when you start to bring in a lot of high profile recruits, we just had this conversation not too long ago about what the transfer portal and NIL money and what it's doing to college athletics. Nowadays you have guys, they'll come and they'll say, I don't feel like working out today. And they might not work out. And so you're dealing with the idea of privilege at the college level. You're dealing with compensation at the college level. A guy comes to a school, he's making, say, $700,000, $300,000, $500,000, and it's through the community in which that player is participating in college athletics, they have leverage that they did not have before. And so I think if you're asking me why did Deion Sanders say what he said, he's basically letting you know. For all of y'all that might think that, like, when you hear the name prime time and all these different nicknames that or these different ways of explaining who Deion Sanders is as the character, as the person, as the player, whatever it is, the coach, whatever it is, how you want to characterize him, the dude is always about his business. He's super meticulous, super intelligent, uberly highly intelligent. And so if you're asking me what he's doing right now, he's setting a tone. Yes, we're going to recruit the best players. Yes, we're going to go after the best guys. But let me tell you something. If you think for 1 second you're going to come to Colorado and cheat the process and buck the system and not prepare, he's right. I used to do the same thing as a head coach. In high school, I looked at the huddle, the app Huddle. When you use it, you can look at how many times somebody logs in and the amount of time that's elapsed on them watching film. Now, while you can't guarantee that they're using it like based off of the time, like you can have somebody else log in the time on your device, on your account. But the bottom line is show you care. Show you care and show you're prepared, like he said. If you're not prepared, if anything, you know that Deion Sanders is being scrutinized. He's being watched very closely. He's got a lot to prove. And he's not going to put somebody in there that's not putting in the time to be prepared to play, let alone if you're not showing up to meetings and you're not showing up on time. You know, the most important asset we have is time. So when you're late for meetings or don't come to meetings at all, you're disrespecting the most precious asset that everyone else has. And you know what message you're sending to the rest of the players, the rest of the coaching staff? That they don't matter. Their time doesn't matter to this player. And so when you're sending that type of message, maybe the question should be, if instead of why is Deion airing him out, maybe the question should be, why doesn't this mean more to a 5-star?
Right.
You're a 5-star player. Why doesn't it mean more for you to be more at this level than what you're giving right now? And it sounds as though, and I could be wrong, but my whole thing is knowing how Prime is. If you're saying this is a kid that just doesn't know any better, Prime ain't airing him out.
Right.
There must be, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I want to be careful to say I'm speaking on what I would think if I were a coach. I'm going to handle a kid that needs to be taught, and they're coming from a place of genuine, I've never done this, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? But when you're not showing up to meetings, Jonas, and you're late for stuff, that says to me you don't care. And I'm going to show you that you know what, our standard is our standard, and that's what it's going to be.
I remember my high school coach telling us, hey, you know, if we're getting on you, it's because we think you could do better. Like, we think there's more there, and that's why we're getting on you. You be worried if you don't hear from us, because then we're like, all right, he's a lost cause. Like, there's nothing we could do. He's just not good, and it's not worth our time to try and invest to improve or try and change. And so the fact that he did go public with this when asked about the question, I totally agree. Like, the people get it twisted that Colorado's all about the flash and the sizzle and all that. Deion Sanders has been pretty brutally honest about, hey, listen, we're coming. We're not there yet, but we're trying. We're going to get there. And there's going to be a lot of work that comes into taking over a program that won one game last year. They were awful. And so I think he's also put them on the map from a popularity standpoint, to where it's like, if you don't think there's other players around the country that see the attention and the notoriety and the spotlight Colorado's gotten and wouldn't be interested in playing there, you're crazy. So if you're a 5-star or not, nobody's job is secure if you're not willing to put in the work. And he just basically called out the player for it. I don't have an issue with it.
And you're using him as for what it's worth. I mean, he put himself in the position to be used as an example. But Prime is using him as an example to say to the other people that they're going to recruit, don't come here thinking that you're not going to conform and go by the rules and follow and trust the process. Don't come here.
Yeah.
Because if I'll bench a 5-star for that, then I'll bench your ass too.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.